I'm shooting for that here. No, I happen to think I have the greatest job in the world. I care a lot about the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I get to work with great leaders like Ken, and I believe very much in this governor. So we're going to have Q&A here in a minute, and I would encourage you to ask me anything, except for really hyper-personal questions. And I'm sincere about that. I actually have made a personal commitment to get out and talk to people about our department and also do that internally. We've done, 100 and something town halls. So I think I've met 75% of our 2,500 staff over the 2 years I've been director. And go to Siskiyou County occasionally for really hard conversations with supervisors and water users in the Scott and Shasta, and those are really delicate property right, water law issues. So I don't think you can necessarily ask me anything more tough, more difficult than I get in some of those conversations. But you should ask me about water, northern spotted owl, just permitting concerns you may have about our department in general, and we'll use a conversation style to cover a lot of territory. I can tell you that when it comes to our implementation of Assembly Bill 1492, it's a little bit like what Winston Churchill said after World War II. So he goes on a speaking tour in America, and he's at Washington University in St. Louis. And I've read this, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, so don't hold me, verbatim. But basically, he got the microphone after his speech and said, I love America. I love coming to America. I love Americans mostly because you do the right thing. And he paused and then said, after you've tried everything else. And in some regard, I think our department's investment now in our relationship with you, our integration with Ken, and our ability to just process work is moving to doing the right thing. A couple of variables I would point out. One, we have Russ in his position, which allows, I think, agency to help foster cross-departmental integration. I think that's added value. Second, we've filled positions, and that difference is night and day. Our timber program, as most of you know, went from the 90s, from where it was, down to literally on a hand you could count the number of people. And since you've put a premium on our belief in our ability to respond to your needs, you stepped up with 1492. Our conversation about establishing benchmarks to judge our performance, we've gone out and we've created a program. We have a program manager in headquarters, Bill Condon. He's a great guy. Most of the positions, however, are environmental scientists and supervisors out in the region. Most of those are in the northern region. But back in headquarters, I think we've made some really strategic hires. We now have a data management person within our information technology division dedicated to tracking all of the things that are in the interplay between you and us on management and permitting. That's going to make a long-term difference, I think. We have a Spotted Owl database manager. So in addition to the broader data management position, we actually have a Spotted Owl database manager in play. I think most of you have met Kate at this point. That's added value in the long run. We have a GIS mapping person dedicated to the issues that come up between you and us. And we've got a lawyer now who's almost exclusively assigned at her, I think, request, so question her sanity, to the topics that come up between, Chris and us, or you as an individual company and us. And I think that's improving our responsiveness and our ability to position well. Those are some examples. Let me also use Ken's format to tell you the main highlights in the governor's January 10 budget relative to our department, just as a way to provide information. So in the so-called kind of A pages, I think the 4 highlights about our budget are, in a prudent, responsible way, our department is continuing to strategically grow. We may be the most over-mandated, underfunded capacity department in California. I mean, at least we're in the running, in my perspective. So this year in the governor's budget, you'll see focus on work we need to be doing in the Salton Sea area. I'd be glad to talk about that more, but there's not much timber there. The other thing you'll see in our area of emphasis is our department will be receiving a $30 million cap and trade budget augmentation like the 50 CAL FIRE is receiving. For us, the nexus between cap and trade and emissions reduction is you actually can go do habitat restoration, principally wetlands restoration, and here the statistics are clear and demonstrable, and you can do that wetland restoration in a way that it captures carbon. So you can actually affect the air emission needle by restoring landscapes. There's also a nexus between kind of emissions work and the recently final California Water Action Plan that the three cabinet secretaries, Ms. Ross, Mr. Rodriguez, and Mr. Laird announced on Tuesday. So our habitat restoration will be achieving cap and trade benefit, but it's also synced up with a water strategy, which is you're going to get multiple benefits from strategic land restoration. You can also get great water benefit. You know that our best aquifer is the headwaters. We can go into Sierra Meadows. We can restore certain meadows in conjunction with landowners that benefit about 100 species, we think, across the Sierra. But when you do that, you're allowing water to percolate, recharge groundwater more efficiently, and the water you can secure basically in the area Randy manages on the Forest Service, flowing downhill will help us add high quality water to our water struggles down on the valley floor. We know going and restoring our own properties can produce a similar benefit, and doing the same kind of work out in the coastal estuaries where we actually interface with a lot of y'all on the properties you own. We're also, two other things in the budget, seeing a dramatic happening now shift on how we move oil in the country off of, for California, oil coming in through our marine terminals, and instead dramatically shifting to oil coming through California by rail, principally coming off of oil produced in North Dakota on the Bakken Shale Formation. We manage oil spill prevention and response in our department, and there's a proposal in the budget to prepare for that shift. I could talk about it if you want. And lastly, of interest to you, this is something I relish saying, there's a joint proposal between us and the State Water Board on marijuana. Hey, you got to find your humor somewhere, right? We're going to add, I think, 7 positions in a real focused year effort to get our department organized around a more biologically driven SWAT team, integrated law enforcement and remediation scientist effort on dealing with what is become an exponential problem for us and Ken and you, marijuana grow operations on public and private lands that are producing dramatic natural resource damages. And one of the things we'll be doing is scoping out what a regulatory program may look like under potentially a reasonable assumption eventually it becomes legalized in the state. And here I think it's a matter of equity. We put you through a permitting washing machine. In some sense, people are producing a product that's not unlike an agricultural or timber product, and they basically are not following any of those permitting programs we require you to follow. I'll get off the stage here by just saying it's been a really hard month. Yesterday, I approved closing fishing in California in about a half a dozen counties. On Wednesday, we're going to be asking the Fish and Game Commission to close fishing on the Russian and the American and some other waters. We have not seen this hydrologic situation in recorded history in California as to drought. We are in a rolling crisis. This governor is taking action daily. I think it's going to require all of us to put down our individual hats and come to a common marketplace and go through this together for the benefit of California. And I'd be glad to talk about that if you'd like. So let's go to questions.